To start, I welcome my colleague Laura Beckwith to the stage. Laura works as product manager and for Configit and joined our company already in 2010. Laura has a PhD degree in computer science from the Oregon State University and also has an intense background in UX, user experience. Since 2017, she's working as product manager for our company now. Laura will provide us with a demonstration and insights on the topic managing engineering rules in ACE. So welcome, Laura, to the stage, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here and to be showing you a little bit about ACE. And I really like that I get to follow on from all the presentations this afternoon because they flow right into what I'm going to show. So today I'm going to be focusing on ACE, and I'm going to be focusing on how ACE can integrate with PLM a little bit more concretely. So what Henrik talked about and what Anders talked about, they talked a little bit about the high level ideas, and I'm showing very concretely how to use this inside of ACE. And while it is focused on PLM, I'm going to start off with an introduction, which is the very basics, exactly how to use the product. So let me get set up here. Oops, here, and switch. So to start out with, I am going to be talking a little bit about terminology. It's, again, going to be very familiar for those of you who are attending sessions today. We've heard this a lot, that terms like feature, characteristic, option group, variable, those are all terms that are out there in the market. And each of you might be using different ones of those terms. In ACE, we call these feature families, and in some areas of ACE, we also call them variables. We also have, if you have a feature family, then you can obviously have features within those feature families. These are sometimes called options or values and other areas. And I have some examples of these over on the right here. For example, an example of a feature family: color, body style, door lock frequency. And if you were to look inside of that color, you would see blue, red, green. A 2-door, 4-door, those are examples of features. So I just wanted to make sure that we're all, and that these are not parts. So in ACE, we are really focused on features. I feel like now I'm probably preaching to the choir if you were all at the various presentations today. But just to highlight that one more time, we talk one level above parts, the abstraction on parts. Of course, they can drive the bill of material. They're very important for determining the bill of material, but we are talking about features. Okay, so I'm going to run through 3 different scenarios today. The first scenario that I'm going to do is a scenario where I give a high-level overview, talk about engineering and marketing rules in ACE and how we do basic validation. And after that, we'll kind of dive into this from a PLM perspective. So let me bring up ACE. So here I'm in ACE, I'm running ACE 6.0, a kind of day before the release type of version. And this one is, you can see that for those of you who are a little bit familiar with ACE, you can see that it has changed its look. You navigate through ACE using this, what we call the little waffle menu up here, and that there are some new areas that you can navigate to. I'm not going to talk about that so much today. I think we're going to dive in and start talking about the product models and the modeling aspect first. So in ACE, we always use work items. Work items are a way of encapsulating your work, allowing collaboration, allowing multiple people to be working at the same time on their own work items or on the same work item. So as I hit resume, then what I am in now in ACE is I can see all the product models that are in this demo system. And for this part of the demo, I really want to focus on a small model to illustrate some of the things and so that we can clearly see how it works. So I have this model called mirrors, and you can imagine that they are side mirrors on a car and that they're configurable because there are many different options that we can have on side mirrors these days compared to 25, 30 years ago. So for example, we can have blind spot notification. We can have, do we have the lights for a blinker? And in here we can see that the answers or the choices or the features that we have are just yes and no. But then we can also have some heated mirrors, and maybe we don't have heated mirrors, or maybe we have them being turned on automatically when you turn on the rear defroster, or maybe they're manually turned on the little control next that controls the rest of the mirror. And so you can see that that there are already some features here, and I'm going to add a couple other families to this just to show the process of being able to add more families. Also, as we've, Henrik, I think especially talked about the need for a global or a global feature library. That is what I'm adding my features from right now. I've chosen to add a numeric family, and I know that I want to add one called height and width to talk about the size of the mirror. And these families on other product models may be used in other product models as well. And of course, something like height and width, maybe it's not quite so clear how I'm going to use those and if they should be the same height and width. But maybe color is a great example. We use the same paints, the same, and no matter which product we want to be doing, we want to use the same colors. Now we know when we say red, we all mean that specific red. So that's one advantage of using the global library. After I add these, I can confirm or change the precision stays the same, but I can say if I want to change the range of the values of the numeric families, but that I don't need to do. And then I add them to my product model. And so now I can see that there's height here and that there's some width. And now, of course, if I just did this, compiled it, and I didn't have any rules, then every single combination would be available to me. And it's through the process of adding rules that I start to pare down the number of allowable combinations. And I already have one rule in this model. I'll open up that one. In ACE, you're able to mark rules as being either marketing versus engineering intent. We'll get a lot more into this a little bit later on about how we can use this. But we marked this one in particular about marketing, and this rule type we call a decision table. And somebody who authored this specified that the columns should be this mirror type: basic, elegant, safety, and warm climate, and that the rows should be some various families: the folded mirrors, blind spot monitoring, or notification, etc. And then the person who authored this just had to put some check marks in to specify the type of rules. One of the things that Joran mentioned, that I come from a background of UX, and I have a big passion for making sure that we're designing things that take into account the different types of modelers that we have. We have some modelers who are very technical, and we have some modelers who are less technical. The more technical ones may be super comfortable with writing code, if then else, and the less technical ones are fantastic problem solvers. They are strong modelers, but they would rather use defining rules in ways where they don't have to think as much about, oh, am I writing this rule syntactically correct, or am I really communicating what I want to communicate? And therefore, we give the power to the user, to the modeler, to decide how to write the rules. And in the end, it doesn't matter. It's all compiled into the VT format. Okay, so that was one of our rules. We also, just added that size. And so I'm going to show you another type of data table rule here. And there are different ways of defining this, but we're going to do mirror type and size. So we're going to link those different mirror types to the sizes. We can mark it as engineering or marketing. And when we're in here, we can add those different things. This time, they're all going to be columns. So it's a lot like doing Excel. And in fact, you don't have to author it here directly. I have a sample here where I've authored this rule, a very small one, in Excel, where I have height, width, and mirror type. And I've defined the legal combinations of these that define, and in this Excel file. And when I import this Excel file, as I'll do right now, then happen is I'll see that imported right here. Now that I've imported it, I can either choose to maintain the rule in ACE model, or I can go back into that. I can download it as Excel again, modify it in the Excel, and then upload it again. So there are a couple different, there's some flexibility in how you want to do this, but you can always upload the initial, maintain in here going forward. And the other functionality we have is that we have some ability to do validation, checking whether or not this basic, do I recognize that as a feature on mirror type? This value 15 is actually valid for a valid value for width. So there's a lot of checking going on also to make sure that hopefully when you go hit that compile button, it won't discover problems. It still can. Okay, so that was one rule. And now I have one other rule I want to write, which has to do with, there is an engineering constraint. So memory cannot go with heated mirrors. So for some reason, there are some constraints around heating the mirror and having memory mirrors. This is definitely driven by engineering because they have not yet figured out how to do these two things together. And so one of the first things that we have done is we have enabled for these users, if you don't know where to start on a text rule, then you can search for a snippet to add. And we have things like you would expect, if then else, ands, ors, exclusive ors, nots, etc. But we also have some other ones, all of, at least one of, and they're ways of, I mean, you could express these with other logic, with and or ors and whatnot, but some of our modelers simply feel more comfortable with language that is a bit closer to our everyday language. And I'm going to start, just to show how this works, I'm going to do that these are infeasible together. And you can see that it was called infeasible in there, but it actually just puts in a not. And then I'm able to add the features, search for the features that I want to add here. So memory mirrors, so yes, memory, cannot go with heated. Oh yeah, and I have two heated. So actually, I'm going to add first the automatic, and then I need to say that it's that one or the heated, the manual heated. So this is one way of entering this rule. And then again, I can validate it. Looks good. And then I'm going to compile this, and then I'll show you how we do that, some of that very basic validation and debugging. And again, this is some of what Henrik showed. So now I'm in it's a configurator that is really only meant for modelers. So this obviously is not a configurator that you would try to present to an end user, but it gives all sorts of information to help the modeler understand the context that they're in and what they're looking at. So I can see, for example, if I go to this mirror type, I can see that it has a default of safety, and I can see that basic's available, but I can also see that elegant is not available. Well, first, let's see what happens if I select the basic. Okay, that looks good. Wow. I see that a lot of other things change from being a D to being an R, and that is probably because of a rule. And in fact, I can see that if I were to switch it to yes on foldable mirrors, that it says that it's incompatible. I would be able to find out why it's incompatible, and I would be able to select it and see that by making that choice, it's removed my basic mirror. Additionally, maybe some of you noticed that in here now that I have the safety mirror, that I'm actually that I'm incompatible with the basic mirror, but unavailable on the elegant mirror. And what this means is there is no configuration in this entire model in the world that would allow me to get the elegant mirror. And I might be very surprised by this because I would expect to. And it turns out that it is because of the combination of these two rules. So now I could go ahead and go investigate those. But I'm not going to do that right now because what I really want to do is move us on to some examples about integrating this with PLM. So let me jump back to my slides. And I want to show you about how the data which has been authored in ACE can be used by PLM or received by PLM. And I'm going to do this by closing this one. And now I'm going to jump over to the area we call verify. And in verify, what I can see are released packages, and which is I have promoted the work I did in my work item, and then I have gone specifically to a release area and released those. And I can now see them here in the verify as release packages. And I can have different releases. So I can release data that's only going to be read by PLM. I can do this very early on in the process when I'm not ready yet to release it to a downstream system, such as a dealer configurator or dealer portal. In this package called PLM test, if I click on this, I can see that I have released the mirror. And when I click on the mirror, I can see here are the list of the feature families or variables that are here. So this is the type of product information that might be needed by PLM, depending on what's authored in PLM. If ACE is the master of the library, then it might be very valuable for the PLM system to know that a mirror exists as a product model, and here are the features that you can find on that. And for everything that I'm showing you here in Verify, there are public APIs where you can extract the same information. We also have now the solution space. Yesterday, Heiko talked a lot about the solution space and about different ways you might be able to use it in your organization. And one of those ways is to PLM, especially if what you want to do is understand what are the valid combinations of some set of families. Maybe they are to figure out in your configurable BOM which combinations do I actually need to put a configurable BOM in for. And here what I've done is, now this is a very small product model, so I have selected every feature, every family. This is not generally what you can do because when you get large product models, obviously you can't select every family, then you have millions and tens of millions of combinations, and that would obviously not be reasonable. But here I have very few actual solutions. Given the rules I've written, I have 15 solutions, and I can get this via an API, or I can download it to Excel, and I could use that to bring into the PLM system. Now I want to go to one of the other scenarios with PLM, and Anas talked a lot about this, which was what if PLM is holding the engineering rules and ACE, you're going to use ACE to author the sales intent. Well, what we can see here is that we can use, there are some APIs, and there's also something we called an XML import. So there's XML format or APIs, depending on what your needs are, to be able to bring the rules authored in PLM into ACE model. And the flow would then be that you work on adding the sales intent. That's what I'm going to be showing in a few minutes. You would then release that data so that it can be configured using ACE configure to a website or a dealer portal. And this can be, done continuously, that any changes in PLM can be brought into ACE model. And we have customers doing this. Okay, so let me show you, let me just show you what I'm going to show you. So what I'm going to show you here is not so much about bringing the rules into PLM, but one of the things I want to mention regarding this is that when I bring the rules in, one choice that you can make on that is to make sure that you lock the rule. And that way you ensure that nobody's going to be changing them in ACE model without the right permissions anyway, and that all the updates to the rules will be handled in PLM, the engineering rules, but you can take advantage of having them. So now I'm jumping into a different product model, our car. So no longer are we at a small product model, but we're at something I would actually put out to the market. And I just want to first show you that the rules that I've brought in this scenario have been locked here. So I have some different rules, and you can see that they're locked. You can see that they're the engineering rules that are locked, and that I can author additional rules directly in ACE. So if I'm going to author, so this product model obviously has a number of features, but we also have done something called adding brochure models. And brochure models are subvariants of the X0. And when you think of brochure models, like the old days, you would go down to buy a car, you would get a brochure, you would page through it, you would look at all the beautiful pictures. And what they showed you in those were some versions of brochure models, and then which versions you could get these in. So we have a 1.6 liter petrol and a 2.0 liter diesel in different numbers of doors, and those are the high level brochure models, and I can get these in various levels, basic or luxury. And these form the basis for adding some of our marketing intent. So now I'm going to show you a few special rule editors that we've added into ACE, specifically with these brochure models in mind and this sales intent or marketing intent. So what I'm doing is selecting a few brochure models, and now I'm looking at which markets do I want to offer these specific variants of my product in. Here I've decided that these are offered in the UK and China, and I can of course control these over time, what's being offered when. And then besides just doing that, we have a secondary screen which says if we choose the UK and we look at brochure model 1 and 2, now I'm going to say, what does it mean when I offer brochure model 1 as a basic or as a luxury version car in this specific market? And what I'm able to specify here is that the brochure model 1, it should have, as a basic version, should have the base audio system being the default feature. That's what you get when you see the base price of this car. This is the function that you get. And I want the highline audio to be, you can upgrade to that if you choose to. But on the luxury version, you're paying a premium to get the luxury. You have a higher standard to start with. You can get the highline audio system. That's what you get by default, and you can upgrade to the premium. And you can make choices that you can't upgrade to the premium audio for the basic. So this is obviously a very specialized editor. Now, sometimes what we tell our customers is that, putting these check marks in, this is sort of a wish list. It's a wish that you want to get no cold climate pack as the basic, as the standard, and that you want to be able to upgrade to optional. But we have to take all the rest of the rules into account. This offering can only be true if the offering aligns with the engineering rules. And so we have a built-in test down here where we can run those tests and check against all of those check marks in feature applicability. Are they something that that you can actually get? Does it make sense to put that as the default when you can't actually get that? And what I can see here is that we have 6 which have failed. And if I go to review the results, I can see that, okay, you expected the cold climate pack in China, you can't get that. You expected the 315 megahertz in China on this brochure model, you can't get that. And then I can do and explain why. And it will lead me to the rules, again, the combination of rules, or maybe just the one rule that is preventing me from getting my wish. And maybe I made a mistake in feature applicability, or maybe I need to go back and talk to the engineer. So this, and then of course, I guess the point being that now, once I've made my changes, if I had to make some changing, I could promote those into my work item into master, and then bring that, release this product model so it can be available for the downstream systems. So I think that was about what I was going to demo today.